On Christmas Day, my son denied me in front of his wife. "You're not our family." Those words cut through me like a shard of ice. The silence that followed was so dense, you could have cut it with a knife. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if you, for even a second, feel like this sounds familiar, I only ask you to leave a like and subscribe. It will help me keep letting this all out. My name is Eleanor Ellie Hope Miller. I am 64 years old, and up until 6 months ago, I thought I knew the meaning of the word family. I live in a beautiful, historic Victorian house in the heart of Oakwood Heights that I inherited from my parents, and that for decades was the refuge where my children ran across the intricate tile entryway, where the aroma of a traditional roast and gingerbread filled every corner on Sundays, where the laughter of my grandchildren bounced against the sky-blue painted walls like the sweetest melody. That morning of December 24th started like any other Christmas Eve for the last 20 years. I woke up at 5 in the morning, put on my apron embroidered with poinsettia flowers that my mother gave me when I got married, and began preparing the feast they expected. My hands, already showing the first signs of age, kneaded the dough for the cinnamon rolls, chopped the vegetables for the holiday casserole, prepared the spiced cider that my late husband Robert Bob loved so much. Every movement was a silent prayer, a desperate plea to the heavens for this Christmas to be different, so my children would arrive and actually see me, truly see me, not just the woman who cooks and pays the bills, but as Ellie, as their mother, as the woman who stayed up all night when they had a fever, who sold her few savings to pay for their private college, who mortgaged this very house to finance my eldest son Michael's textile import venture. The inheritance that Bob and I built over 40 years of marriage had become a family emergency fund. Every month, without being asked directly, I transferred money to my children's accounts. $1,200 for my granddaughter Chloe's private school tuition, $800 for Michael's car repair, $3,000 when my daughter-in-law Tiffany wanted to remodel the kitchen of their apartment on the Upper West Side. My bank account was like a faucet they turned on whenever they thirsted for money. But that day, as the sun filtered through the windows of my living room and I finished arranging the poinsettia flowers in the centerpiece, something stirred restlessly inside my chest. It was that feeling you get when you know something is about to change, but you don't yet know if it will be for better or for worse. At 2 in the afternoon, Michael arrived with Tiffany and the children. My heart raced like a teenager waiting for her first date. I ran to the door with open arms, hoping for those hugs that would fill my soul for a moment. Michael gave me a dry, quick peck on the cheek, the same you'd give a distant aunt at an obligatory family gathering. Tiffany didn't even look me in the eye. Her fingers were busy checking her phone while she whispered something about how boring it is to be stuck here all afternoon. The children, Chloe, 12, and Owen, 8, walked past me as if I were invisible, straight toward the Christmas tree, where they knew the most expensive gifts in town awaited them. That year, I had spent more than $6,000 on imported toys, designer clothes, and gadgets they had specifically requested. My retired teacher's pension, plus the dividends from the small investments Bob had made in real estate, allowed me these family luxuries. But every dollar spent felt like a coin thrown into a wishing well that never granted a wish. During dinner, as I served the dishes I had prepared with so much love, I heard snippets of conversations that chilled me to the bone. Tiffany complained to Michael about having to come here when we could be in Cancun like all the normal families. My son nodded while checking Bitcoin prices on his phone, calculating how much money he might be losing by not monitoring the crypto market. "Mom," Michael said without looking up from his screen, "did you transfer this month's money yet? I have to make a payment first thing tomorrow." My heart sank. Not even, "Thanks for dinner, Mom." Not, "Everything is delicious as always." Just the reminder that I was, essentially, their personal ATM. "Yes, dear," I replied with the softest voice I could find. "I transferred the $3,000 to your account yesterday." "Only 3? Tiffany raised an eyebrow. "With inflation and everything, it barely covers anything anymore. My mother says you should consider increasing the monthly allowance a bit." I felt as if I had been slapped. Tiffany's mother, who lived off her late husband's pension and had never worked a day in her life, had opinions on how I should manage my money. Money I had earned by waking up at 5 in the morning for 30 years to teach classes. Money I had saved penny by penny while Bob sold insurance door to door under the relentless sun. It was at that moment, as I chewed a bite of roast turkey that tasted like cardboard in my mouth, that my daughter Jennifer arrived with her family. She brought her husband Scott, a man who worked in high-level finance and always found a way to mention his stock market investments, and my grandson Ethan, 16, who hadn't spoken a word to anyone over 20 in the last 3 years. "Grandma," Ethan said without looking up from his handheld video game, "do you have 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi? Because this 4 gig is super slow." Jennifer apologized for being late. "We went to Scott's parents' house first. You know, they know how to do a Christmas dinner right." Every word was a small stab that accumulated in my chest like drops of poison. I got up from the table with the excuse of bringing dessert, but in reality, I needed to go to the bathroom to cry in silence for 5 minutes. Facing the mirror, I saw a 64-year-old woman with light brown dyed hair, wrinkles that told stories of laughter and tears, and eyes that no longer sparkled as they once did. I wondered when I had stopped being Eleanor and simply become the one who pays. When I returned to the table with the key lime pie they loved so much, I found the whole family gathered around Michael's phone, watching videos of families at luxurious Christmas resorts. "Look, Mom," Jennifer said without turning to me. "The Harrisons went to Aspen this Christmas. Their parents paid for the whole trip. It's incredible." The message was crystal clear. I should be paying for their trips to Aspen instead of forcing them to have dinner at their mother's house. It was then, in a moment of silence while everyone watched the Harrisons' travel photos, that I approached Michael with my heart in my hand. "Son," I said softly, "could you put your phone away for a moment? It's Christmas, and I'd like us to talk a little. As a family." Michael looked up annoyed, looked at Tiffany, who rolled her eyes, and then looked at me with that expression I had seen so many times lately. The expression of someone who considers they are wasting their time. "Mom," he said in a tone I will never forget, "stop being so dramatic. You're not our family. We are a family. You are something else." The silence that followed was deafening. Michael's words hung in the air like the smoke from a newly extinguished candle. "You are something else." Something else? What exactly did that mean? A piece of furniture that occasionally transferred money? A housekeeper who cooked for free? A stranger who just happened to share his last name? Tiffany let out a nervous giggle and nudged my son conspiratorially. Jennifer pretended not to have heard anything, but I saw her lips curve into a barely perceptible smile. Scott continued talking on the phone about gold price fluctuations, as if nothing had happened. The grandchildren remained engrossed in their electronic devices, oblivious to the moment their grandmother's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces on the polished hardwood floor. I stood there, next to the table, still holding the serving spoon I had used for the pie. My hands trembled slightly, but I managed to maintain my composure. I had learned, after so many years of marriage to Bob and raising 2 children, that showing vulnerability at the wrong time only invited more attacks. "I understand," I mumbled, and headed toward the kitchen, but I didn't understand anything. While washing the dishes with mechanical movements, my mind traveled back in time, desperately searching for the exact moment I had stopped being their mother to become something else. Had it been when Bob died 5 years ago and my children, instead of comforting me, immediately started asking about the inheritance? Or maybe earlier, when Michael lost his job at the textile company, and I, without being asked, started depositing money into his account so he wouldn't lose his lifestyle. I vividly remembered the day Michael came to my house with a folder full of papers about cryptocurrency investments. "Mom, this is our chance to multiply the family wealth," he had said, his eyes shining with excitement. "We just need to invest $50,000 in Bitcoin, and in 6 months, we'll have double." I didn't understand anything about digital currencies, but I saw the passion in my son's eyes. It was the same expression he had as a child when he showed me his school drawings. So I took the money out of my savings account, the one Bob and I had fed for decades with the discipline of 2 people who knew the value of every dollar. The Bitcoins went up a bit, went down a lot, and in the end, we lost almost everything. Michael told me that those things happen in business, and that the next investment would be different. There was never a next investment. There were only more requests for money. Jennifer had been more subtle in her way of extracting family resources. She would arrive with problems that needed temporary solutions. Ethan's private school was too expensive, but just for this year. Scott's car had broken down, and they needed a new one. But, we'll pay you back in installments, Mom. The mortgage on their house had a very high interest rate, but if I loaned them money to pay it off, they could save thousands of dollars in interest and pay you back everything in 2 years. Every loan turned into an unacknowledged gift. Every favor transformed into a permanent obligation. And I, like a fool, kept saying yes, because I thought it would keep my family together. That night, after everyone left without even helping me clear the dirty dishes, I sat in my favorite armchair with a mug of hot cocoa and pulled out a shoebox I kept in my bedroom closet. Inside were all the family photographs from the last 20 years. There was Michael at 25, graduating from college with a huge smile, hugging me in front of the auditorium while I cried with pride. Jennifer at 22, on her wedding day, telling me in my ear that I was the best mother in the world and that she hoped to be half as good a mother as I had been to her. The grandchildren, when they were little, running toward me with open arms every time I visited, shouting, "Grandma Ellie," as if I were the most exciting thing in their lives. At what point did those hugs become obligatory? When did those smiles turn into feigned gestures? At what point did I stop being the fun grandmother who bought them ice cream and told them stories, to become the woman who always had to have expensive gifts and money available? I found a particularly painful photo. Last year's Christmas. I was in the center, surrounded by my family. But if you looked closely, you could see I was the only one truly smiling. The others had that polite, strained look you give when someone forces a family picture. Michael was checking his watch. Tiffany was looking at her phone. Jennifer was holding Ethan, who clearly preferred to be anywhere else. And there I was, in the center of it all, beaming with happiness, because I believed I had a united family. How blind I had been. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed awake until 3 in the morning, mentally calculating how much money I had spent on my children and grandchildren in the last 5 years. The figure I arrived at was terrifying. Over $200,000. Money that had come from my pension, from the dividends of the small properties Bob had left me, from the savings we had kept for our golden years. $200,000 that had bought. What exactly? Obligatory visits 3 times a year. Phone calls only when they needed something? The constant feeling that I was a burden in their perfectly organized lives? The next day, December 25th, I woke up with a mental clarity I hadn't had in years. I prepared my signature dark roast coffee as I did every morning, but this time I didn't set the table for possible unexpected visitors. This time I didn't overcook, just in case someone shows up. And this time I sat alone in my kitchen, and for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't hurt. The phone rang. It was Michael. "Mom, hey, I forgot to mention yesterday. Tiffany saw an incredible apartment on the Gold Coast, but we need the down payment. It's about $80,000. Do you think you can help us? It's a super investment. It's going to appreciate a lot." I stayed silent for several seconds, holding the phone as if it were a venomous snake. "Mom, are you there?" "Yes, I'm here," I replied with a voice I didn't recognize as mine. "So what do you say? Will you help us with the apartment?" It was at that moment that I remembered exactly what he had said the night before. "You're not our family." And for the first time in 5 years, those cruel words gave me something unexpected, the freedom to act accordingly. "No," I said simply. There was silence on the other end of the line. "What do you mean, no?" "No, Michael. I am not going to help you with the apartment. But, Mom, it's a safe investment. The real estate market in that area is growing exponentially. We could make a fortune. Have a good day, son." And I hung up. The phone immediately started ringing after I hung up. 1, 2, 3 times. I simply sat in my kitchen chair, watching the screen light up with the name Michael again and again. For the first time in years, I didn't rush to answer. For the first time in my adult life, I let my son wait. When it finally stopped ringing, I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't exactly relief, but it wasn't guilt either. It was something new, something I didn't know how to name. 20 minutes later, Jennifer arrived. She didn't even knock. She used the key I had given her years ago for emergencies. I heard her enter with that characteristic rush of someone who comes to put out a fire. "Mom!" she yelled from the living room. "What did you say to Michael? He's freaking out. He says you hung up on him." I found her standing in the middle of my living room, hands on her hips, and that expression she used when she was a teenager, and believed I had committed some unforgivable injustice. She was wearing a blouse that cost more than my monthly grocery bill, and her freshly manicured nails shined with a polish that was probably worth what I spent on medicine. "Good morning, Jennifer," I said with the calm of someone who has just discovered they have all the time in the world. "Would you like some coffee?" "I don't want coffee, Mom. I want you to explain why you said no to your own son." I slowly poured myself another cup of coffee, added a little cream, and stirred carefully. Every movement deliberate, every pause calculated. It was as if I had found a new rhythm for my life, one where I set the pace instead of dancing to others' tune. I told him no because I don't want to give him money for an apartment on the Gold Coast. "But Mom, it's his future. It's Tiffany and the children's future. How can you be so selfish?" That word, selfish. For 5 years, every time I had questioned an expense, every time I had suggested that maybe it was time for them to be responsible for their own finances, that had been the word they used to silence me. "Don't be selfish, Mom." Dad wouldn't have been so selfish. Grandparents are supposed to help their families, not be selfish. "Do you know what is selfish, Jennifer?" I asked, sitting down in my favorite chair. "Selfish is only coming to your mother's house when you need money. Selfish is only calling her to ask for favors. Selfish is telling her she's not part of the family and then demanding she act as if she is." Jennifer's eyes filled with instant tears, the kind she had perfected since childhood to get her way. "Mom, Michael didn't mean that. He was stressed. You know how he is when he's worried about money." "And when is he not worried about money, Jennifer? When was the last time your brother called me just to ask how I am? When was the last time you came here without needing something?" She remained silent, but I could see her mind working quickly, searching for examples to justify her position. It was useless. We both knew the visits had followed a very clear pattern in recent years. Financial emergencies, parties where they needed me to cook for free, or celebrations where I was expected to bring expensive gifts. "That's not fair, Mom. We have our lives, our jobs, our responsibilities. We can't be here all the time. I'm not asking you to be here all the time. I'm asking that when you are here, you are actually here. That you see me as your mother, not as a family bank." Jennifer collapsed onto the sofa, and for a moment I saw the girl she used to be. The girl who ran in to tell me about her day at school, who asked me to braid her hair, who fell asleep in my arms watching movies on Saturday afternoons. "I didn't know you felt that way," she murmured. "How could you know? You never ask how I feel." We remained silent for several minutes. Outside, life in the neighborhood continued its normal course. Mr. Henderson was watering his plants as he did every morning. Mrs. Martinez was sweeping the sidewalk. The neighbors' children were playing soccer in the yard. Everything looked the same as always. But something fundamental had changed within these walls. "What do you want us to do, Mom?" Jennifer finally asked. It was a good question. What exactly did I want? For so many years I had focused on giving, on providing, on being available, that I had completely forgotten what I needed or desired. "I want you to stop treating me like your personal employee. I want you to visit me because you genuinely want to spend time with me, not because you need something. I want my grandchildren to know me as their grandmother, not as the woman who buys them expensive things." "But Mom, we do want to spend time with you." "Do you really? When was the last time you came here and asked me how I'm sleeping? If my knees hurt? If I feel lonely? When was the last time you noticed I changed my hair color? Or that I lost weight? Or that I stopped wearing the perfume I liked so much because I can't smell it well anymore?" With every question, I watched Jennifer's face crumble a little more. They were small details, but they are the details that matter when you truly know someone. The details you observe when the person interests you beyond what they can do for you. "I didn't realize," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I know. And that's exactly the problem." My phone rang again. This time it was Tiffany. Jennifer looked at me expectantly, as if she expected me to rush to answer as I always had. But I didn't. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Immediately after, it rang again. Michael again. And then another call from a number I didn't recognize, probably Scott. It was as if I had activated some kind of family alarm, and everyone was panicking because the emergency money source had stopped working. "Aren't you going to answer?" Jennifer asked. "Why? To hear more versions of the same request? To have them explain why I should continue emptying my bank accounts to finance their lifestyles? Mom, it's not like that. We love you. Do you love me? Or do you love what I can give you? Of course we love you. Prove it without money involved. Come visit me because you miss talking to me. Call me to ask what I read this week, what I'm cooking, how I slept last night. Bring my grandchildren so they can tell me about school, not so they can see what gifts I bought them. We can do that. Can you? Then do it. But in the meantime, there will be no more money for apartments, investments, emergencies, or anything else you come up with." Michael got up from the sofa with that expression he put on when he didn't get what he wanted. It was the same face he had made at 5 when I told him he couldn't have candy before dinner. The same expression at 15 when I denied him permission to go to a party. The same look at 25 when I told him he had to get his own job instead of expecting his father to hand him one. "All right, Mom. If that's your decision, I respect it. But I want you to know this is going to affect our relationship." "Our relationship? What relationship, Michael? The relationship where I'm an ATM and you are my preferred customers? It's not fair for you to say that. You know what's not fair? That after 40 years of work, of sacrifices, of giving everything for you, I find myself at 64 discovering that my own children only seek me out when they need money." Michael walked toward the door, but before leaving, he turned to me. "What if we really need help? If there's a real emergency?" "Like what? Like the new car emergency last year? Like the Tiffany's kitchen remodel emergency? Like Jennifer's trip to Europe emergency? No, I mean a real emergency. Medical, something serious. For real medical emergencies, there's Social Security and Medicare. For real economic emergencies, there's work. For real family emergencies, there's unconditional love. Mom, have a good day, Michael." And I closed the door. For the first time in 5 years, I closed the door in one of my children's faces. And I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. After closing the door, I stood in the foyer for several minutes, listening to the engine of Michael's BMW drive away down the street. The silence that followed was not the empty, painful silence of loneliness. It was the clean silence of someone who has just ended a conversation that needed to finish years ago. Lista de adaptações feitas. Nesta parte, nome original, nome adaptado: Carmen Esperança Ruiz, Eleanor, Ellie, Hope Miller, Roberto, Robert, Bob, Miller, Alejandro Michael, Mike, Miller, Mônica Tiffany Miller, Patrícia Jennifer, Jen, Davis, Raúl Scott, Davis, Sofia Chloe Miller, Emilio Owen Miller, Diego Ethan Davis, Don Esteban Mr. Henderson, Señora Guadalupe, Mrs. Martínez, Licenciado Fernández, del despacho jurídico, Hernández y Asociados Mr. Wallace, from the firm of Sterling and Associates, Local Original Local Adaptado Guadalajara, Casa Colonial, Oakwood Heights, affluent U.S. suburb, historic Victorian house, Pasillos de Talavera, intricate tile entryway, polished hardwood floor, Zona Rosa, Polanco, the Upper West Side, the Gold Coast, affluent U.S. city areas, Puerto Vallarta. Vacations were kept generic, but implied U.S.-style travel, expressão original, expressão equivalente. Aquelas palavras me atravesaram como una daga helada. Those words cut through me like a shard of ice. El aroma de mole poblano llenaba cada rincón los domingos. The aroma of a traditional roast and gingerbread filled every corner on Sundays. Correr por los pasillos de Talavera, ran across the intricate tile entryway, to maintain detail. Me ayudó a continuar desahogándome. It will help me keep letting this all out. Mi corazón se aceleró como el de una quinceañera esperando a su primer amor. My heart raced like a teenager waiting for her first date. Pavo que sabía a cartón en mi boca. Roast turkey that tasted like cardboard in my mouth. El silencio limpio de quien acaba de poner fin a una conversación que llevaba años necesitando terminar. The clean silence of someone who has just ended a conversation that needed to finish years ago. ¿Qué crees que soy tonta? Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I'm naive? Use the direct translation. Do you think I'm foolish? Referência cultural ajustada. Breve explicação da mudança. Navidad. Comidas. Tamales oaxaqueños. Chiles en nogada. Ponche con canela. Traditional Christmas feast. Cinnamon rolls, holiday casserole, spiced cider, roast turkey. Adapted to standard, often high effort, U.S. holiday dishes to match the effort pride of the original. Delantal bordado con flores de cempasúchil, flores de nochebuena, apron embroidered with poinsettia flowers. Poinsettia flowers. Replaced the cempasúchil. Marigold, Day of the Dead reference. With the standard U.S. Christmas flower, poinsettia, to maintain the seasonal floral motif. Pensión de maestra jubilada. Bienes raíces. Maintained, but financial figures adjusted to U.S. relevant amounts. Hipotecó esta misma casa. Maintained as mortgaged this very house, but the house type was adapted to a Victorian house to match a desirable, high-value U.S. asset. Transferencias, custos, pesos. Conversión, adaptación para dólares americanos. High 200, 1-800, 3,000, 6,000, 50,000, 80,000, $200,000 total loss. The amounts are scaled up significantly to reflect a high cost of living U.S. environment, making the financial demands and losses more impactful for a retired teacher. Flan Napolitano adapted to key lime pie or creme brulee, used key lime pie. A fancy, high-effort dessert appropriate for a U.S. holiday feast. Seguro Social adapted to Social Security and Medicare. More specific and relevant U.S. government-backed safety nets mentioned in the context of real emergencies. Café de Ola, adapted to signature dark roast coffee, focuses on the routine and strength/quality, as the Ola preparation is not a standard U.S. custom. Texto adaptado. It was superficial, but it was real. Nobody mentioned money, investments, loans, or emergencies. But then, just when I was starting to think that maybe it was possible to rebuild our relationships, Michael ruined the moment. Mom, since we're having such a nice chat, could we circle back to the apartment? It really is a unique opportunity. The silence that followed was devastating. The air in the living room grew dense, as if someone had sucked all the oxygen out in one gulp. The 30 minutes of almost normal conversation vanished instantly, revealing that it had all been an elaborate prelude to get to the true purpose of the visit. Jennifer closed her eyes in resignation. Tiffany looked up at the ceiling as if pleading with some deity for patience. Scott focused intensely on his shoes, and I just sat there, in my own living room, watching my son destroy with a single sentence the illusion that perhaps, after all, a real relationship with my family was possible. Michael, I said with a voice so calm it surprised even me, you just perfectly demonstrated exactly what I explained to you yesterday. What do you mean? That you don't know how to relate to me without money being involved. We had a normal conversation for half an hour, like human beings, and you couldn't resist the temptation to turn it into a business meeting. But Mom, we really need to make a decision soon. The seller is pressuring us and… Enough. The scream left my throat with a force I didn't know I possessed. Everyone flinched. I was surprised myself. I hadn't yelled in years. That's enough, Michael. I got up from the armchair and walked toward the window, turning my back to them. I needed a moment to control the fury that was building in my chest, like a volcano about to erupt. Do you know what the most painful part of all this is? I said, without turning around. It's not that you ask me for money. It's not that you see me as a family bank. The most painful part is that you can't even pretend to be interested in me for a full hour. Mom, we are interested in you, Jennifer murmured. No. I turned back to them with tears of rage streaming down my cheeks. You are not. What just happened perfectly proves it. Michael couldn't even wait until the end of the visit to mention his damn apartment. Tiffany tried to defend her husband. Eleanor, we understand your frustration, but you have to understand that we also have financial pressures. Your financial pressures? Your financial pressures? My voice was breaking. And what do you think mine are? Do you think I print money in the basement? Do you think I have a gold mine in the yard? We know it's not easy for you either, Scott said, trying to diffuse the situation. Do you? Do you really know? Then tell me. Do you know that I mortgaged the house your father and I took 20 years to pay off just to give you money? Do you know that I sold all the properties Bob left me to generate income just to fund your investments? Do you know that if I continue at this rate, in 2 years I'm going to have nothing? The silence was deafening. Jennifer's face was white as a sheet. Michael stared at the floor, his fists clenched. Tiffany and Scott seemed to have stopped breathing. We didn't know the situation was that serious, Jennifer whispered. Of course you didn't know, because you never ask. You've never cared where the money came from as long as it kept coming. Mom, we can help you recover your financial situation, Michael said desperately. The apartment on the Gold Coast really is a good investment. If we buy it now, in a year we could sell it and— No! The scream was so loud I felt my throat tear. I am not going to listen to one more word about that apartment. Not one single word. I sat down heavily in my armchair, suddenly exhausted. Years of accumulated frustrations, of swallowing reproaches, of smiling when I wanted to cry, of saying yes when I wanted to say no. Everything spilled out at once like a flooded river. Do you know what I'm going to do? I said, my voice hoarse from the shout. I'm going to tell you exactly how much money I have given you in the last 5 years, and then you are going to make a decision. I walked to the study and returned with a binder I had been avoiding checking for months. Inside were all the bank transfer receipts, all the bills I had paid on their behalf, all the evidence of my own financial ruin. January last year, $1,200 for Chloe's tuition. February, $1,800 for Michael's car repair. March, $3,000 for Tiffany's kitchen remodel. April, $1,500 for Ethan's school trip. With every figure I read, my children's faces crumbled a little more. May, $5,000 that Michael needed for a safe stock market investment. June, $2,500 for Scott's medical expenses that insurance didn't cover. July, $4,000 for Jennifer's family vacation. Mom, you don't have to— Yes, I do, I roared. Because you never wanted to know. You never wanted to see the numbers. You just wanted the money to magically appear. I continued reading. August, $7,000 for Jennifer's new car down payment. September, $3,500 for a huge chunk of money for a lavish Sweet 16 party for Tiffany's friend's daughter, that for some reason I was expected to help pay for. October, $2,000 for Michael's dental treatment. The list went on and on. November, December, and then all of the previous year. And the year before that. Every month, every bank transfer, every loan that was never repaid, every temporary favor that had become permanent. In total, I finally said, in the last 5 years, I have given you over $250,000. $275,000 to be exact. Jennifer covered her face with her hands. Michael was pale as a ghost. Tiffany and Scott looked at each other as if they had just witnessed a car crash. $275,000. I repeated. That was almost all my liquid net worth. Everything Bob and I saved over 40 years of work. Everything he wanted me to have to live with dignity after his death. Mom, we didn't know it was everything, Michael said, his voice broken. Didn't know? Or didn't want to know? Because there's a very big difference between the two. We didn't want to know, Jennifer admitted, crying. It was easier to assume you had unlimited resources than to ask if we were hurting you. It was the first honest confession I had heard from my children in years. And now, I continued, you want me to mortgage the only thing I have left, this house, to buy you an apartment on the Gold Coast that will benefit only you. We could put the property in your name too, Tiffany suggested weakly. Why? So when you need money again, you can sell it without consulting me? No, thank you. I got up and walked to the front door, opening it wide. I want you to leave. All of you. Right now. Mom, please, we can fix this, Michael pleaded. Fix what exactly? My empty bank account? The 5 years I lost believing I was helping my family when in reality you were stealing my future? The years of loneliness I spent while you enjoyed my money? Don't say we stole from you, Jennifer protested. We never meant to hurt you. Didn't you? Then tell me, did you ever, at any moment during these 5 years, stop to think about what I was sacrificing to give you what you asked for? Did you ever wonder if I had enough money for my own old age? Did you ever consider that maybe I also had dreams and plans that required financial resources? None of them answered, because we all knew the answer was no. Leave, I repeated, and don't come back until you can see me as your mother, not as your personal financing plan. And if we can never do that? Michael asked in despair. Then I suppose you'll have to live without a mother, because I can no longer live without dignity. One by one, they left my house. Jennifer was the last to leave, turning back at the threshold to tell me, "Mom, we really do love you." "Prove it," I replied, "but prove it without asking me for money." And I closed the door. For the first time in 5 years, my house was completely mine again. Weeks passed without calls, no visits, no messages. At first, it hurt. It was like grieving, but also, day by day, I felt something healing inside me. I started reading more, walking, talking to neighbors, going to the farmer's market without rushing. I met other ladies in the neighborhood, grandmothers like me, who cared for their grandchildren not with expensive gifts, but with stories and board games. One afternoon, I found a letter slipped under my door. It was from Michael. "Mom, I think we never knew how to see you. We only saw what you gave. I won't promise immediate changes, but I want to try." I kept the letter. I didn't respond, because promises were no longer enough. I wanted actions. The following month, Jennifer came alone. She knocked. She waited. She brought a box of gourmet donuts and flowers. "I just want to have coffee with you," she said. And we did. We talked for hours. For the first time, without asking, without crying, without reproaches. Just two women who were once mother and daughter, and who maybe could be again. Then Michael came, alone. He brought a book. He asked me to read it together, like we used to. That afternoon we didn't talk about the apartment. Or the money. We just read. Maybe not everything is lost. Maybe there is a way to start over. Life taught me that true love cannot be bought with gifts or measured in money, but in presence, respect, and sincerity. That setting boundaries is not selfishness, it is self-respect. And that it is never too late to reclaim the dignity one gives up for fear of being alone. Have you lived through something similar, or do you know someone who has gone through a situation like this? Tell me in the comments. If this story touched your heart, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so that this message can reach those who need it most.